Hi, boys and girls. Welcome back to reading. This week in reading, we are going to review the author's purpose and why authors write text. We're also going to be reviewing how to make predictions. But let's first start reviewing what is the author's purpose. The author's purpose is the reason an author writes a text. So if you remember from the last unit, we reviewed 4 main reasons authors write. I want you to think about those 4 main reasons authors write and see if you remember them as I'm reviewing them with you. So authors have a few main reasons or purposes for writing. The first main reason is to share information with the reader. Next, it's to explain something to the reader by giving directions. The next reason is to entertain the reader. Those are those just for fun books that we love to read. And lastly, to persuade the reader or to convince the reader to do something. Let's dig a little bit deeper and review these 4 main purposes that authors write. So, one reason that authors write is to persuade or convince the reader to do or believe something. So, persuade means to try to convince someone to think the same way you do. So, if I wanted to persuade you to believe that chocolate ice cream was the best, I would tell you all of the great things about chocolate ice cream, and I would hope that you would also think that chocolate ice cream was the best. Some examples of when an author persuades their audience is advertisements. So whenever you see like commercials on TV, in the newspaper, sometimes people will try to get you to sometimes authors will try to persuade you to think the way they think. Junk mail, and then also posters. Like I'm thinking of movie posters. I know that those movie posters always try to convince me to go watch the movie. So those are some different ways authors try to persuade the reader, try to convince them. One other reason that authors write is to share information. So remember, inform means to give someone information about something. Some examples of when authors' purpose is to share information are news reports, research papers, encyclopedias, school newsletters, instructions, pamphlets from the health clinic, maps, timelines, schedules, charts, and graphs. All of those things, the purpose of all of those different examples are to share information with the reader. Another reason the authors write is to explain something to the reader. So when you explain, you give someone steps or directions in order to complete a task. Some examples of when authors try to explain something are recipes, how-to books, and directions. When an author writes a recipe, a how-to book, or directions, they're trying to explain how to do something. And so that's what an author's purpose is, to explain. And lastly, authors write to entertain the readers. So entertain means to amuse someone. So when you entertain, it's amusing or fun to read. Now remember, we talked about that always doesn't mean that it's funny, but sometimes you read it just for fun. It's just to entertain the reader. Some examples are fictional stories, comic books, poems, jokes, and riddles. Right, now that we have reviewed the author's purpose and why authors write, in the next video, we're going to learn how to make predictions and how to confirm those predictions or make sure those predictions are right. So as we're learning about making and confirming predictions, I want you to think of the author's purpose also. All right, we'll see you in the next video.